The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome to this evening's Family Support Center of New Jersey's webinar presentation titled Customized Employment for People with Disabilities Who Have Significant Needs. This webinar is the first in a series to assist families and professionals in gaining the information needed to help others, students, and loved ones navigate the transition years through adult life. This evening's presenters are very passionate about customized employment. Beth Keaton is a senior consultant at Griffin, Hammis and Associates. Currently, she oversees the Certified Business and Technical Assistance Programs administered by Florida Division of Vocational Rehabilitation and the Texas Department of Assistive and Rehabilitative Services. Additionally, Beth works on numerous other customized and self-employment initiatives throughout the country, including the Florida Rural Routes to Employment, the New Jersey Customized Employment Initiative, and the Entrepreneurship Boot Camp for Veterans with Disabilities. Beth also serves as the Executive Director of the Center for Social Capital. Also joining us tonight is Bret Vaks. Bret is a training and consultation specialist at the Boggs Center on Developmental Disabilities. His primary focus is employment specialist training and management training. Prior to his work at the Boggs Center, Bret has had the pleasure of living and working in Hawaii and Massachusetts before returning home to New Jersey. He holds a Bachelor's of Science in Human Services Counseling from Lesley University in Cambridge, Massachusetts, with an emphasis in client-centered approach. He received his MBA from Centenary College with emphasis in marketing and finance. Just to note, questions will be collected and held to the end of this session. We encourage you to please type any questions in the area located in the toolbar of the webinar. At this time, I would like to hand the control over to Beth, and please join me in welcoming Beth and Bret.
Hello, everyone. Hold on one second. I am getting the screen up.
Good evening, folks. This is Bret, and welcome. Hopefully all of you are sitting at home in front of the fireplace, especially if you're in New Jersey or the greater New York area or greater Philly area, depending on where you live in our state. I live in central Jersey, and there's almost already a foot of snow here, so at least I can do this at home. That's a very cool thing.
Can y'all see the screen, Bret?
Yep.
Perfect. All right, so I'm gonna jump in, and then Bret, I'm gonna invite you to interrupt me at will. So please jump in as we go through this presentation. Hey everyone, it's Beth Keaton, and I have the good fortune to be calling in from the state of Florida. So we're not having anywhere near the weather you are having. We're all complaining because it's going to get 40s tonight. So that's super cold for Florida, but hope all of y'all stay safe and warm, and thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Even though everybody's on mute, I just heard this. Oh, man. No, I'm sorry. That's right.
That's right. Sorry. All right, so what we're going to do tonight, we're going to talk about, this is not, sorry, my thing isn't changing. We're going to talk about customized employment, and the webinar itself and the project that we're doing in New Jersey, it's actually funded by the New Jersey Council on Developmental Disabilities. And the goal of the project is to increase non-traditional consumer-directed opportunities for producing real wages or self-employment income for people with developmental disabilities using replicable, sustainable, and cost-effective strategies. So that's kind of a mouthful of a sentence in terms of what the goal for the New Jersey Customized Employment Initiative is. But I think the long and short of it is to just continue to forge a pathway and to develop better methods and better means of getting more and more people better paying, sustainable jobs, right? So really helping everybody be able to launch careers. And so that's been the focus. The project is actually potentially a 3-year project. We're currently just starting the 2nd year. And there are a couple of key components to the project. So we're, each year we work with 2 agencies, and by we I mean the agency that I work for, which is Griffin, Hammis Associates, and the nonprofit arm of the agency that I work for is the Center for Social Capital. And then Bret at the Boggs Center is also joining us to work with 2 sites each year. This year we're working with the Family Resource Network, who we're very grateful is hosting this webinar, and then Avenues to Independent Living. Last year we worked with Bancroft in Voorhees, New Jersey, and Jewish Family and Children's Services in Southern New Jersey and Cherry Hill, and our continuing support to them. So each year we work with 2 agencies. As a course of the work that we do with the 2 agencies, we're providing a training series. It's 6 days of training. So there are 6 full days of training going on with each of the 2 agencies that we're working with this year. The trainings that we're providing for Family Resource Network are actually being held at the Boggs Center in New Brunswick. And anybody who participates in all 6 days of trainings can earn a certificate from the Association of Community Education Specialists or Rehabilitation Specialists. So anyway, so that's sort of the long and short. And then in the work with the actual agencies, each agency is working directly with 4 particular individual job seekers, and we're providing the technical assistance to them so that they're going through a customized process to get to employment outcomes for those 4 people. So we're very excited about the work that's happening. We're really excited to be working with Family Resource Network and Avenues to Independent Living this year. And you'll hear a few stories about some of the outcomes from the work that we did last year with the other 2 sites as we go. Bret, do you want to say anything on any of that?
No, the only thing I would add is simply that, in New Jersey, part of our sort of hope and excitement with this project is certainly employment specialists, I think, have been doing a lot of customized employment already, certainly the job developing. Many of the jobs that we're seeing for people with autism, people with developmental and intellectual disabilities, job coaches and employment specialists are going out. They might not call it customized employment. They might not be aware of that's really what they're doing, but more and more of the jobs that we see that are being created are for people that people are actually going out and having that dialogue and conversation. But the nice thing about this training is I like to sort of say that this brings in a different element, which has been just kind of a very exciting, nice component to the training. In our state in New Jersey, and Beth will talk about this a little bit later, we probably have not done too much of the sort of higher level customized employment, which might include resource ownership, which might include helping somebody find a different pathway to employment. And I think that that's been a really important aspect and component of the project, because for a variety of different reasons, partly for the economy, the economy is getting better, but it's still not great. And we still know that we have people with disabilities, people with autism, who are coming to us saying, hey, I want to be employed, but there might not be a traditional job because they're now competing with somebody with a master's degree who's trying to get a job at Starbucks or 7-Eleven. And so I think that this fits very nicely with folks who are highly creative, who are thinking out of the box, who can now have a little bit of a little bit more of an arsenal, so to speak, in their tool chest to be able to say, well, let's go this route, or let's take this direction to employment. It might not look like what we're used to, and it might not include going out and doing the traditional interview process. It might mean doing a little bit of blended funding and braided funding and a way to create a pass, but let's get to employment through this direction. So that's what's new about this, and certainly something to hear about. I would also just add, too, that one of the things that I help both Beth and Corey, who's the other trainer, for any of the administrators on the call, typically in the summer, usually around June or July and August, we begin the process of recruiting for the project sites for the coming year. So if what we talk about tonight resonates with you, if you are an administrator, touch base with me directly sometime, shoot me an email, and we can sort of get you the internal RFP that we sort of use to generate interest in the project for next summer.
Beautiful. Thank you. Okay. So this, again, is just sort of going through what we just talked about in terms of what we're doing with the actual site. So we go through this customized employment training series. We've done the first 2 trainings in that series for each of the sites now, and then providing the ongoing technical assistance to people at these sites, to all the staff, so that they're able to do what they need to do, going through the customized employment process to actually get 4 people into customized employment by the end of the project year. So it's really exciting and fun work. The challenge, and Mel, I don't know if you can type a response to this. The problem that I'm having is that this GoToWebinar panel is taking up almost my whole screen, so it's really hard for me to see my own slides, and I can't move it. Well, there, I got it a little bit moved. But anyway, if you could email me or text me on that, that would be great. So the challenge with customized employment and the goal, really what we're trying to do is exactly what the slide says, which is create lasting, satisfying, person-directed employment beyond the confines of traditional job development. And the picture that you're looking at is Jimmy. Jimmy lives in Philadelphia, and he's someone that my colleague, Corey, who works on this project as well, has worked with in Philly. And Corey laughs and says, you know, Jimmy came out of high school and he got the sort of the standard ubiquitous fast food job, working in food service. He says he's just terrible at food service. Food service is a terrible match for him. It always has been. And the job coaching just never ends there. And the reason that it never ends is because the job itself is just not a good fit for him. And so when they started the customized employment process with Jimmy, they spent a little time with him, and one of the things that they found out about Jimmy, one of the things that Jimmy really loves is bugs. And I'll talk more about what the process of customized looks like as we go through this, but based on that initial knowledge of the fact that he had both interest in and skills related to bugs, they broadened that and they started saying, okay, where do other people who have a vocational interest like this work? Where does anybody who has any kind of an interest connected to insects, bugs, where do they work in this community? And can we start to go and learn more about what they do there, right, just to see what all is even out there in this field. And they ended up at an aviary, and they said it was a riot because they went into the aviary. The employment specialist got stung about 15 times. But Jimmy never was done. And so they continued the exploration, and he really just did have this incredible skill and connection with bees the way some people have. And so he has subsequently launched his honey making business, and he actually is a beekeeper. Behind him you can see the vehicle where he's currently storing his hives. And they're continuing the process. They actually got him some funding through the PASS program, which is PASS stands for Plan for Achieving Self-Support, and it is a work incentive available to people who receive SSI, and in some cases even people who just receive SSDI, and it will help support an employment goal. And so he's received some funding through PASS. They're looking at expanding, getting more hives, and then trying to find more better avenues for what he can do with the honey and how he can sell it and continue to grow his business. So
Beth, if I could just jump in for a quick second, because I think this highlights, and Beth and I only have, as a webinar, we only have 40 to 45 to 50 minutes to give you a snapshot. This case highlights what I was referencing a little bit a few moments ago, that part of sort of the excitement with customized employment is that this is highly creative and a bit out of the box. Some of you might be sitting there saying, wait a minute, he has a job as a beekeeper? Well, yes, he started his own business. Beth just mentioned something called PASS. A lot of this, and this is for the admins on the call, a lot of this, why this is so important to sort of understand what customized employment is, and this is also for the families on the call, because oftentimes you have to drive the change and service delivery change with these kinds of issues, is that part of the customized employment, there's different ways to fund these end results, and that's also not something that we've done a lot of in New Jersey. We're very traditional. Go to DVR, DVR does the funding, we get somebody a job. Where this is much different, and we're going to be doing a training at the Boggs Center. Beth actually will be coming from Florida in March. It's on the PASS, on the Social Security incentives. And again, I think it's very important if this really resonates with you tonight and you're interested in learning more or bringing this to your agency, or if you're a family that says, my goodness, this is amazing, you really also need to come to that training, because that's sort of the crux of this. And it's definitely new for New Jersey. We do not do a lot of passes. I think last year we wrote like maybe 15 for the entire state. So this is how we do this, and it is out of the box. This stuff tickles me because this, employment is such a passion for me, and just how amazing, how awesome is it to think that somebody we support has his own business being a beekeeper. That's the other piece of this. It's just cool. It's just fun and interesting. So so I just wanted to kind of jump in there for a second, Beth.
No, that's fabulous, and I'll even piggyback on that, and Bret is right. We do only have about 45 minutes, and that's the biggest, that should be the challenge, right, on the balance side. But yes, and I'll say the other thing that I think that his story highlights in terms of thinking differently is that it would have been easy to look at him and say, he is struggling to hold down a basic food service job. How in the world could he run his own business? And yet what we find again and again is that when we get the right fit for people, none of those sort of parameters that we want to impose upon them hold true. So he will continue to struggle with fast food and excel at beekeeping, right? So it's not one of these situations where you have to prove yourself going through the hierarchy of jobs to get to where you can run your own business. In many cases, self-employment could really just be the best fit for somebody. And so I think we have to let go of kind of the perceptions of what proves that somebody would have skills at running a business, right? And just get to know people where they are and figure out the support picture. Whoops, I do this all the time. It'll come back. Okay, here we go. So what is customized employment? So really quick, just the brief sort of in a nutshell about what customized is. I think the first and most important thing to say is that it stands on the shoulders of supported employment, meaning what we're trying to do with customized employment is look at all the things that we've done with supported employment for the past 15 or 20 years and begin to identify what's working and what's not working. And what we know is that supported employment services have been very effective for some job seekers. And yet there are other job seekers for whom we have just not been so effective, right? And I think any of us who have worked in this field, any of the providers on the call can nod their heads and say, sure, there are some people for whom we've been a great success, and there are other people that we've just not been able to figure it out for. And that's where customized comes in. What customized says is we need different strategies. We need to build on what we've learned, and we need to try to continue to grow our skill sets in the areas that haven't been as effective so that we can have more success with more people. So it's not a service, it's not a program, but it's a series of strategies. It's a basic approach to employment that is particularly beneficial for people who have higher or more complex support needs, right? The people for whom we've been less successful with supported employment are the people who are really benefiting from customized employment. And one of the things that's really powerful about customized and taking a customized approach is that it just completely alleviates the whole competitive hiring model. So there is never going to be here is like Bret was saying, people competing for jobs at Starbucks. With customized, you're never going to get into a situation where you have an employer who's looking at 17 applications and trying to decide between them, right? We're just going to circumvent that entirely and just avoid all of the competitive hiring altogether so that we can instead just create employment opportunities for people one person at a time and one business at a time. And again, we'll give you some more examples of how you do that as we go through this. A couple of things that customized employment is not. It's not going to be group-based employment, so it's always going to be one person at a time. It's not based on labor market needs. So this is not going to be an approach where we say, in this community, we need people who fill in the blank, right, who know medical billing or who have basic electrical engineering background. It's not going to be anything where the businesses themselves are dictating to us what it is that people need to be learning. It's always going to start from the perspective of who is this person, what are their skills, what are their capacities, and how do we create something based on that. I know it looks a little weird sometimes for people to see that not looking for the dream job. And there's nothing wrong with asking a question about a dream job, but what we have found historically is that trying to go for the dream job or focusing everything on what's your dream doesn't really necessarily give us the tools that we need to get out there and create something effectively. So we want to get a lot more specific than a general dream job approach. And there's never going to be anything like a traditional vocational evaluation or testing or just general interest inventories used and customized. Again, we're really just spending our time getting to know one person at a time in their own environments and in their own settings so that we can learn what we need to learn about them. The key components for customized employment, and again, where some of the areas where I think it really it begins to differentiate itself from supported employment, because a lot of times people will ask that question, is this really a different approach or is this just different terminology for the same thing? And again, I think there are many components that are going to be similar for customized employment and supported employment, but there are some fundamental differences. And some of the things I think that are really striking about customized and a customized approach is that the focus really is on small business. So I think with a lot of supported employment practices, we've focused on the big community employers, or we focused on the big box stores like Home Depot, PetSmart, Target, the grocery stores, who are all pretty large employers and communities. But with customized employment, we're really trying to look at who are the local business owners, and can we get to know more about what's going on in the small business community to begin to figure out where opportunities are that will benefit not only the person looking for the job, but will also benefit that small business as well. And the reason, there are many, many reasons that we do this. First and foremost, it has been effective. It's been incredibly effective. And I think for many years in supported employment practices, we've just sort of ignored the small businesses and put all of our attention on the big box stores. But with small business, most of them are undercapitalized. Most of them don't have any kind of a human resources department, and so you can reach the decision maker, right? And you can actually work with the person who is in control of the decisions to try to figure out if there are opportunities inside of that company or not. As Bret just said, there's a big focus on blending and braiding of resources. So looking at things like all of the different resources that somebody has available to them. So that's funding from vocational rehabilitation. Do they have potential for this plan to achieve self-support that we were just talking about, or a past plan? Are there other systems resources or personal resources that they have access to? So that at the start, we're getting all of this stuff identified so that we know what pots of money we potentially have to tap into in order to get to their employment outcome. And I think that that's different, because usually what happens is we focus everything on getting the job, and then there's this very sort of last-minute focus on, oh, how will this impact your benefits, right? But never asking the question of how can we make these benefit programs work for you, instead of just being something that you're trying not to lose. And I think that's the difference with customized. And as Bret said, we'll do a whole training on that, and would love to have anybody attend who's interested. Customized really does support economic development, and you'll hear in the examples that we provide when we talk about things like resource ownership, where a person may be contributing a resource to a business to grow a different product line or grow a different service. But that we're really looking at how do we partner with these other small businesses in our community to create something that's beneficial to both the business and to the person looking for work. And that's a little bit different than just finding jobs, right? And the fourth point I wanted to make is that one of the things that we really stress with customized is that agencies, providers who are providing customized employment services really work within their community to identify who are the people who have social capital, who have lots of rich connections within their community, who have their own personal vested interest in seeing that community thrive in terms of economic development and employment, and getting those people together to serve as active members of the planning process for individual job seekers. So it's very different than like the business advisory boards, which tend to have a function of helping with fundraising or overseeing services. And it's more people who just come sit around a table and are willing to A, brainstorm possibilities, and then B, and this is the real key, make connections for people. So pick up the phone, call somebody who they know that runs the jewelry shop down the street and say, I've just met somebody who's potentially interested in jewelry making, trying to learn more about it. Would you be willing to have them come in and spend a few hours with you and you can show them what you do? So community action team members are not asking for jobs. They're just helping facilitate connections so that we can learn more about the different businesses that are out there and about the different businesses that people are doing.
And if I could just add very quickly, Beth, I think that one of what Beth's talking about with community action teams is also, I think, paramount and crucial, and also another exciting component of the project, because we know how important it is for networking opportunities for not only our individuals but for ourselves. But I think, to be honest, sometimes that as we know that networking is so important, it might be a little bit easier said than done, so to speak. If you're starting out and you're new, or you're a young person, or you're new to the state, the likelihood of your network is being something extensive and large is probably not going to be, certainly at the moment, a strong network. So I think that the community action teams is a really pragmatic, step-by-step way to actually formalize and create networking. I think that sometimes we use a lot of buzzwords. So we say, oh, let's network. But that might not be easy for everybody. And I just think that a lot of this is very practical. And, you establish a community action team, you are tapping into different individuals, like Beth is saying, people in your community, and you are utilizing their existing network. And that can be very powerful. I mean, again, for the admins on the call, you might use those community action teams for fundraising. Think about taking that idea and establishing it and saying, wait a second, I've got this group of people who can sit around and talk about how do we help somebody have some real life experience, some potential that may lead to a job. Again, when we use community action teams in different venues, we tend to have significant successful outcomes. So, I just think that it's a very practical way to actually help establish, as a professional, your network, quite frankly. So it's a really, really wonderful thing.
Fabulous. So some of the different outcomes that you can have with customized employment, it's a little bit broader than what we've historically seen with supported employment, which has focused more on securing wage jobs. But you certainly could see wage jobs that could be customized, where you're going in and you're actually negotiating jobs, by pulling together based on what you've learned about this business and what they do and what pieces of the work they do that you think could be a good fit for somebody. You could be negotiating a job that way. You could do this thing called resource ownership. And again, resource ownership, and I have a couple of examples of this in the slide, is if there is a connection between a job seeker and a business owner usually, right? And really it looks like this is a great environment for the person to work. There's just a natural connection between people. The industry is a really good fit for the job seeker's skills and interests. We see a lot of potential there, but the employer is just not hiring, and they're not hiring because they don't have the capital to hire, right? Which is something that we see a lot in small businesses. There are times that it may be that the person, the job seeker, can use some of these resources that we've talked about, that we've looked at and we've planned out. So we know they potentially have the support of VR. We know that they may be eligible for PASS. So we use some of these resources to purchase a piece of equipment that goes into the business. It's still owned by the job seeker, right? But it's housed in the business. And by virtue of contributing that equipment to the business now can tap into an additional profit or revenue stream that they didn't have before. And as a result of that, a job is created. They now have the income to actually pay the person. And resource ownership can be really, really powerful and really impressive when it works. We always say it's never the first strategy. You don't go in saying, do you need any equipment? Because maybe Joey can buy it for you. But only when you really start to see that there's a connection and possibility with a particular business, you can start to explore to see, is there something that could come into this business that, again, would increase revenue and allow the hiring of a new employee. And then self-employment, which you already heard the example of Jimmy, but it could be that people are starting businesses as a result of the customized exploration. But all work is going to be paid competitive work. It's always going to be in integrated settings. We're always assuming that there's going to be an ongoing support need for people, and that that's a part of what the planning process encompasses, is figuring out what those needs are and how we're going to make sure that they're met. I'm just going to go through some of the key components of customized employment really quick, and I would say at the absolute heart of customized employment, and this is always going to be the basis for any customized outcome. If discovery or discovering personal genius, which is the term that we use at Griffin Hammis Associates, is not used, it's not a customized outcome. Doesn't mean it's a bad outcome, right? It could be a great job, but in order to be customized, it's going to start with a discovery process. And in a nutshell, what discovery is it's an activity-based process that we use to spend time with a person while they're doing the different activities of their life, right? Going around, seeing what all they do, learning about them, so that we can start to identify what their skills are, what ideal conditions for employment would be. So what kinds of things need to be in place no matter what the job is, right? It needs to be an environment that is quiet, or it needs to be an indoor environment, or we know that he takes medication at night and really doesn't wake up until 8 a.m., and so job really needs to start at 9 a.m. or later. Whatever they are, we're going to identify these ideal conditions and the support they need. And I think the real key to discovery is to understand that the whole point of discovery is to answer the question of what work will be best for somebody, not if work is possible. We are going to start always with the assumption that work is possible and that all people can work, and it's incumbent upon us to begin to figure out what work is it going to be, right? What is going to be the work that has the greatest likelihood of leading to long-term success for the person? We'll spend a lot of time with people, again, just watching, observing them do different activities and trying different activities with them so that they have this opportunity to showcase their skills, right? And when you think about vocational evaluations, ultimately that's what they're really trying to identify. But what we know is that for some people, they're not going to identify skills. They're not going to showcase skills on a standard test like that, right? So instead, we're going to start with what activities does the person do well. We're just going to start with talking to them, talking to their family, talking to the people who know them well to figure out what kinds of things do they do now, what kind of things do they do well, spend a little bit of time observing, learning about that, and then build on that, right? So we'll go further out and maybe try to find related activities in the community to see, is this a real skill set? Is this a real interest? You know, does it hold up in a different setting, or is it something that they only like to do here? You know, I like to make pancakes at home on Sunday mornings. It's one of my absolute favorite things to do, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I want to go out and make pancakes all day long every day, right? So we're going to start with what we know and then build on that and explore it in different ways and get connected to the community while we're doing that. The outcomes, as we spend time with people and learn more about them through this discovery process, ultimately, and this is usually, you say discovery takes about 6 to 8 weeks, depending, right? There can be obviously some variations depending on individuals, but generally about 20 to 60 hours, 6 to 8 weeks of time. So we spend a lot of time doing different things with people, but ultimately what's going to come out of that is we're going to identify 3 vocational themes for them. And this is also different. One of the things that happens a lot of times with jobs and job development is we tend to think very narrowly, right? So we have 1 or 2 conversations with somebody or the people that know and love them the best, and based on that, oh, you like your dog, you should work with animals, right? But with vocational themes, what we're trying to do is we're trying to go even broader than that. So if somebody was really interested in cars, we might broaden that theme to transportation. If somebody was really interested in clothes, we might broaden that theme to fashion. And the reason that we do that is because we want to, we want to get to as many possible businesses in the community as we can, right? So for each team, we're going to identify 20 different businesses that have some focus on that particular area. We can use our CAT teams to identify contacts or connections within those businesses to get in there so that we can do some informational interviewing and begin to learn what they do, right? And that is the customized process in a nutshell. And it sounds really simple, and yet what we see is if you honor it and you do it, you can see some really powerful outcomes come from it. So we wanted to tell you just a few fun stories because we know that that's really where it lies. And I know we're quickly going through our time, so I'll try to be as efficient with these as I can, but still give you the sense of what it is that people are doing. This is Jerry. Jerry worked with one of our year one New Jersey agencies, so he was a part of the year one project. And he is somebody who has what they would call good days, bad days, right? So he's had employment in the past. On a good day, he's been very successful at his job. On a bad day, and he calls them automatic days, that's what he calls them, he's having an automatic day, he would just potentially shut down entirely. And may or may not work, may just sit there and do nothing all day long, and the job coaches would get called back in. But there was no real way for him to predict when the days were going to come or not come. So the team really felt like self-employment might be a good option for him because it would give him more autonomy and more control over that schedule and more flexibility with the schedule. During the discovery, some of the things that they learned were that he had a history of working with plants, and he really did enjoy plants. He has this fantastic eye for detail, really, really great at detail work. Very, very focused, and really likes working kind of in small environments that he feels like he has some control over. And so he has also this artistic flair. So they tried several different discovery activities with him. He made some mosaics. He actually likes cooking. They tried a cooking activity. But the thing that really seemed to grab him was making terrariums. So they actually did a discovery activity where he made terrariums. He came back in and wanted to do it again the next day. He's working right now to try to figure out, he wants a signature piece that he's going to include in each terrarium. And that picture that you see, those are the big ones. He's actually now moving towards the small ones. So the one that you see, the photo of the small terrarium with a little animal in it, that's not actually one of his. But that's the direction that he's moving because it looks like there's more profit potential with those. And he's calling his business Automatic Creations. Which is a name he thought of that really meant something to him. So he's just in process of getting started and getting launched. They've connected with, through the community action team, and this sort of, we're talking about getting connected with community, with a business owner who owns a flower shop who has just been incredible at giving him feedback and direction. They're working on getting together a portfolio, and the goal ultimately is for him to be a business within a business inside of that florist. So we'll keep you posted as that unfolds, but it's happening now. I'm going to skip this one, Bret, just because we're running out of time. Do you want to talk about Chris?
Oh, sure. The Chris is another story that just tickles me when we look at sort of the potential with customized employment. This is our colleague Corey at the other site from last year, JFCS. And through a lot of these things, again, sometimes we, again, that networking thing for a lot of people, I think, that might sound intimidating, but again, we know how successful it can be, and somehow through the community action team that was established, this gentleman in the yellow shirt is the original Philly fanatic. For anybody who's on the call from South Jersey, you probably love the Phillies, and if you love the Phillies, you love the Philly fanatic. And so Chris, one of his passions and one of his goals was to be a mascot. Well, through the community action team, there was a connection to Dave Raymond, the original Philly fanatic. And through, again, a lot of these things are layered, so through conversation and through utilizing, again, the existing network, Chris ended up getting his first major contract over. Actually, he got two this year. one of which is being one of the mascots for Wawa. And if you could turn the slide, Beth, I think there's another picture of what Chris is doing. Is there? Yes, there's Dave. Chris also is doing some mascot work with Chick-fil-A, and he also last year, so he had a kind of a real double big gig doing some work with Wawa, but also got a gig as a mascot on the Cape May Lewes ferry for the summer. Going back, I think the Cape May Lewes ferry is become more in some ways of a tourist experience. Certainly in the summer, families would take the ferry across from Cape May to Lewes, Delaware, and vice versa. And so he's got a job, kind of on the ferry, working and trying to make kids happy. Great experience and great opportunity, and really kind of the perfect example of what we're talking about. Is he working full time? Probably not. Is he getting paid well when he does his gigs? Absolutely. And is he doing what he would like to do? Absolutely. Is this out of the box? You betcha. Is this something that you're going to go to DVR and say, hey, this is a traditional job? Probably not. Is this something that, you can go to DDD or, our traditional, again, avenues? No. Did this take a little bit of different thinking to create this position? Yes. But what's the end result? We have a gentleman who is quite happy and feels fulfilled doing what he wishes to do. And you know what? This is entertainment. I mean, we know that we have people who enjoy the arts, who enjoy, presenting themselves in a different way, and and that's exciting. Again, there's so many different nice outcomes here. Highly person-centered. We never poo-poo somebody's dream. Somebody says, hey, I'd like to do this. There's a job there. It just requires us to find, again, a couple of different ways to make that happen, and a successful outcome.
That's so great. It's such a great story, and it's going to be so fun to watch it happen.
That's the picture I love. That's one of his other gigs now. Is he's the Easter Bunny in a local shopping mall. I think that might be Short Hills, the Short Hills Mall, that he had a gig there as the Easter Bunny. Again, pretty cool stuff.
And a great promotion for Zales too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Background. I wish I could show you the video, but I didn't think I could make the video work for the webinar. But you see on the bottom corner of the screen a little farm fresh produce stand. And this is a business started by a young man named Terry. Terry had recently graduated from high school. He was not somebody that they felt like he was even going to be a candidate for a workshop. Terry had all kinds of labels. Terry had all kinds of sort of things just attached to him. So, they called Terry an eloper, which means he will run out if he's not having lots of fun. He'll go towards something that's more interesting to him. He was really interested in things like big machinery. That was something that was really interesting to him, and a lot of times when he would go running after something, he was running after like a truck or a tractor. He had grown up in a very rural community in Colorado, so had been around farming all of his life. Farming was something, and agriculture was something that was interesting to him. They knew that Terry just needed a more flexible environment. He did need some ongoing support. And so when they were doing discovery with Terry, and when they were doing some of this just informational interviewing, and again, as Bret said, it can be very informal. Part of what they started doing was just calling on the different farms in the community and just learning more about them and what they did there. And Dave, my boss, who was working with Terry, so they went to a farm down the street that was run by two brothers. And when Terry met the brothers, they were just, Dave was facilitating a conversation, just learning more about what they did on the farm. But one of the things that was really interesting to him was that at one point, Terry walked over and put his head on the shoulder of one of the two brothers. And Dave said that kind of reaching out just didn't happen very often. And he said the other thing that was really powerful was that when Terry did that, the brother just kind of leaned back into Terry. And so what Dave would say is that's all he needed, right? That's the kind of stuff you cannot make happen. And so Dave was then bound and determined to try to figure out what would be a possibility that would allow Terry to work with these two guys. And so they just talked, and one of the things they found out was that the farm was only doing commercial farming, so they were just shipping stuff off to commercial environments. They weren't actually selling directly to the community. And so through this ongoing conversation, they came up with the idea that Terry would actually start a produce stand, and that's what you see, the blue building. He would sell some of the farm produce directly to community members. And then, of course, a portion of the profits went back to the farm, or he paid the farm for, wholesale, whatever it was. They had an agreement. So the farm was actually benefiting economically from the stand being there. And then over time, I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's a little greenhouse behind there. He actually then created a greenhouse where he started growing herbs and different plants that weren't otherwise available in the community, and he sold those as well. And has been running, I believe, this business for 10 or 15 years now. Does still need support, needs ongoing support every day, but is incredibly successful at it, and they don't have any problems with Terry running off because Terry's doing what he wants to do. And I think that is what is so incredibly important about this, is that, again, that we learn enough about who people are that we can begin to figure out the environments that are just going to be the right fit for them. And when we get people in environments that are the right fit for them, a lot of times behavioral challenges or the other concerns that we have are just completely negated, or at least able to be supported. And Beth, here's another great story for me, just because, again, he is somebody that I think there was a lot of concern about. He may not be able to be successful in wage employment, and I would say with the right wage employment, he certainly could have done that too, but yet was great at self-employment, right? And so there can be those situations. Sorry, Bret.
No, I think you actually just said it. I just going to very quickly say that I think one of the other very nice things that we see with customized employment on top of all of these benefits is that this really does work for people who have challenging behaviors. Again, that's a barrier, unfortunately. How many times have people on the call heard that, oh, well, this person has too many behaviors, they can't be employed, which we know is not true, but obviously we know that message is still out there. And oftentimes customized employment can serve people with behaviors incredibly well. It's just absolutely, we see it all the time.
Yep, absolutely. And the other fun thing about Terry is that every day at the end of the day he gets to go ride around on the tractors with one of the brothers. So it's just so cool, It's just everything that really makes Terry happy is right there where he goes to work and runs his business every day. This is Scott, and Scott is somebody who has just recently launched, he's actually in the process of launching a business, but it started as a resource ownership thing. So I wanted to tell you about how that worked. I think he's a great example. And there's a link at the bottom of the screen. We'll get this out to people if you want to see more about his story. But Scott was working part-time in a local restaurant that did a lot of seasonal business. And so one of the things that was challenging, he was doing great at the restaurant, had a great relationship with the restaurant. He was happy there. They were very happy with him. But he couldn't make enough money. He couldn't hold on to the job. There just weren't enough hours because of the seasonality and other factors. So they started working with the restaurant to try to figure out, is there anything else that he could do here? And so one of the things they figured out was that the restaurant wasn't making their own ice cream. They were purchasing ice cream. And so that's a fairly costly endeavor. And they came up with the idea that if Scott actually brought an ice cream machine into the business, that would save them enough on the amount that they were otherwise paying out to the people who they were purchasing the ice cream from to create an ongoing position for him. So that's an example of resource ownership. And again, like I said, it's not that they just randomly called on a restaurant and said, do you have any equipment that you need? But based upon this ongoing existing relationship between Scott and this business, they knew there was a great possibility there. They just were going to have to do something a little bit more creative and clever to figure it out. So Scott actually purchased the ice cream through funds that the organization I work for, Griffin, Hammis, oversees this thing called the K Fund, which is the Kennedy Fund. And so we were able to get him a loan through that, and then he's using the PASS program to pay that loan back. So it's a beautiful way to combine these different resources. In addition to that, so this buying this machine created this employment opportunity for him inside of the restaurant, but now he's actually expanding it and is selling his ice cream to other places as well. So he's really a combination now employee and emergent business owner, which you see a lot of times for a lot of people. They may have a job and then they're building and growing a business on the side, and that's what he's in the process of doing. So really cool stuff with that. Mel, I think we're at about 10 minutes. Do you want to open it up for questions? We can certainly keep talking if need be.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
Beth. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I apologize. There is a slight delay. We actually have a ton of questions. I don't think that we're going to be able to get to them all. And just so that everyone in attendance knows, if we don't get to your question, I will definitely give you our 800 number to reach out to us at a later date. I'm not sure if we're going to be open tomorrow due to the snow. But by all means, we, again, if we don't get to your question, please reach out to us. We'll make sure that you get in touch with either Bret or Beth, or we'll give you the appropriate resources. But absolutely, let's get to the first few that came in. Can a young adult receive these services? And can a young adult prior to the age of 21 receive these services? If the answer is yes, what is the cost?
I can answer that more generally, and then Bret, I'm going to let you jump in if you have any specifics related to New Jersey. So the general answer to that is yes. Customized employment is incredibly powerful for people who are going through that transition process out of school. So that there are projects that have worked where they're really doing customized within school systems, working with teachers so that teachers can really be doing this the discovery process while students are still in school, and then they're able to leave either with jobs, which is the ideal, or at least with a whole lot more information. Again, generally speaking, customized employment tends to be funded within states the same way that supported employment is. So usually there's no cost to an individual or a family. They just have to be tapped into the system resources. But Bret, I'm going to defer to you in terms of within New Jersey on that.
Yeah, and what I will do actually is answer briefly and then defer to actually our host. I mean, one of the really cool things this year are the 2 project sites. Last year we had a really wonderful experience with JFCS and Bancroft as traditional providers. And this year it's interesting because both Avenues to Independence and Family Resource Center have a tremendous focus on self-directed services. And I believe, certainly theoretically, and I think that both agencies, I know that both agencies have come on this year and were interested in doing this because there is, I think, a way to be able to use the self-directed budgets to link those to customized employment, and certainly the skill set that Beth and Corey are training the 2 sites this year will help to establish that. So, theoretically, you could certainly, and I, would defer to, again, our hosts insofar as the specifics of the self-directed budgets, because I have less direct experience with those. But it fits very nicely with that funding stream and that kind of service delivery. And I think that I also would just suggest that we've seen and have had great, I think, a partnership with our colleagues and professionals in state government and state leadership. And I always just feel very strongly that the people that do this work are advocates, and I always think that anything that's new, sometimes because it's new to our state, one person may say, hey, tell me more, and that's okay. You can always put people in touch with myself or with Beth to help have that conversation. So, but I do think that absolutely this can be done.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Bret. And again, I will give you a contact number for the Family Support Center and Family Resource Network at the end of the webinar, and we can definitely get you in touch with the appropriate person. The next question would be, would you consider employment opportunities for a client working from home?
Sure. I mean, you know, again, if one of the things that you found within the ideal conditions for employment, and for some people, particularly people who live in very rural communities or just as a result of their own unique situations, that maybe transportation is a problem or working from home is going to be ideal. Not going to necessarily, I mean, there are very few business owners, even if you work from home, who have absolutely no contact with anybody else, right? So again, you're not saying work from home to create a situation of isolation, but there are many, many small businesses that operate from home. So yeah, absolutely, that could be a possibility.
I completely would absolutely agree. Just keep in mind, anything that is from home, you do have to generate a profit or actually get paid. You know, I mean, and obviously that's quite logical that anybody can work from home, but are you actually getting paid for it? And that's a serious comment.
Thank you, guys. So the next question, I apologize. The next question is going to be, if you assume all people can work, can you explain how someone who has no concept of work or uses no formal or even informal methods of communication and cannot physically perform tasks or self-care activities can be expected to work?
Sure. I mean, just because I say I assume that all people can work, I mean, I do. I assume all people can work. And so what I would say is that in a situation like that, number one of the key things is going to be to really figure out what the person's support needs are. So we're going to assume that there is going to be a pretty significant ongoing support need, right? And that's fine. So that's a part of what we would then be planning for. There's a great story. Michael Callahan, who is a colleague that works for Mark Gold and Associates, which is another firm that does essentially what we do, very similar work, worked with somebody, and the one reliable skill that they could identify for the person was that she would turn her head to orient to a sound. And so once they figured out that she would reliably do that, and it was the sound of music in particular that she would turn her head and orient to, then they said, well, could we hook up a switch so that when she turned her head, she hit a switch? And then the next question became, okay, so what work could be controlled through the switch? And she ended up actually working in a job where she was operating a shredder. She did have a person right there with her providing ongoing support, so that they made sure that the shredder was always, you know, filled with whatever it needed to be filled with so that she could shred, but she was the one doing the shredding. So I think even in the situations that are going to be less obvious, there are ways to begin to figure out what could somebody do and what might somebody enjoy doing. And I think that when you talk about more limited communication, when you talk about people who have more extensive support needs, I think that piece of figuring out what's interesting to them or what's motivating to them becomes even more important, right? So that if I don't really get money in the physical sense, I don't really get I'm going to go and do this job for 5 hours a day because I'm going to make money. If I don't really see that piece of it, if I don't really feel that piece of it, then what I'm doing for those 5 hours is really, really important. And so I think that's the key with Customize, is beginning to try to uncover all of that.
Yeah, if I could just add to very quickly the two things. You know, we have an example in our state, a wonderful family, and we've seen other examples around the state and country. You know, again, when I was talking earlier about linking customized employment potentially to the self-directed budgets, I mean, one thing that we hear about frequently is, you know, somebody needs a one-to-one to, you know, be able to complete a job, and we know that our partners sometimes and colleagues, you know, we can't fund for a one-to-one. But I've seen highly creative families, and again, our colleagues and friends in the state figure out ways to, in fact, through combination of customized employment and the self-directed budgets, to in fact ensure that that staff person that you're paying for with the self-directed budget is actually the one-to-one when the person is out employed. There's a person running a business. But I would also just, you know, I'm not sure who asked the question. If it's a family member, I always defer in respect to families because you know your loved ones best. If you're a professional, how that question was phrased is highly negative, quite frankly. I don't believe, yes, there are people who have high levels of care need without question. Hey, we all do. That's how I look at this. We all have our own idiosyncrasies. I can't, barely match my clothing. But let's not be so negative all the time about the individuals that we support. They can't do this, they can't do that, they can't do this, they can't do that. I can't tell you how many times I hear that, time and time again. And oftentimes we know that we throw up so many barriers. Oh, this person can't communicate. Well, we know it in the year 2013. There are plenty of ways to communicate with the new iPads and iPods. Oh, they're too expensive. We can fundraise. Oh, no, there's ways to get them. We know that, oh, this person has too many behaviors. Yeah, they might have behaviors, but have we understood what's causing the behavior? Is there a way we can teach the person not to engage in the problem behavior to satiate their needs? So we know that there's, let's not always be so deficit-based. Let's try to be as positive as we possibly can, as person-centered as we possibly can, simply because if somebody wants to be employed, we'll find a way. Is it easy? No. I mean, that's the bigger issue. It's not about the person. Let's not be deficit based on the person. We can help that individual find a job. But that's the piece that's not as easy.
And Bret and Beth, I want to thank you both very much. And Bret, I think you said it well. The families know their children the best, and I think that this is really an exciting opportunity for many. This will conclude this evening's webinar. And just as a reminder, we will archive this recording on the Family Support Center of New Jersey website. On behalf of myself, Laura Hurley, and the rest of the Family Support Center of New Jersey, I want to extend our warmest thanks to both Bret, you, and Beth for facilitating tonight's conversation. I'm going to encourage everyone in attendance to really visit the Family Support Center of New Jersey along with our new Transition Matters website for up-to-date information, resources, and training opportunities. The website is fscnj.org. We also hope that you'll join us for upcoming webinars. Our next two are scheduled for Tuesday, February 11th for the Social Security incentives, and also Tuesday, March 25th, titled Healthy Transitions. Please remember that you can reach out to the Family Support Center of New Jersey with any questions or for additional resources at 1-800-372-6510. Beth and Bret, thank you again. A beautiful job, and I think that you gave a beautiful cover of what customized employment can be. So thank you both.
Oh, thank you. It's an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Everyone stay warm and safe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.